I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? What's going on, boxing fans and UFC fans? I hope you guys are good. I hope you guys are excited about the UFC 287 that's coming up. I'm looking forward to it, man. Adesanya versus Pereira, the rematch. Oh gosh, I was just going to go into Adesanya, man. I feel so sorry for the fact that he's lost 3 fights in a row with Pereira, but I'm going to go into that because today I'm going to make some predictions on the 2 biggest fights on this card. I will be watching the whole card. There are some other fights that are worth talking about that I might get into in this video or another video, but the 2 main ones, to be honest, is Adesanya versus Pereira and George Masvidal versus Gilbert Burns. Those 2 fights are going to be electric, honestly. So these are going to be my predictions. Now, my predictions are going to be based on body language and just their track record, the way they fight, the matchup, and maybe some surprising, controversial picks. But I'll let you know my thoughts behind it. So we'll start with the main event. Adesanya versus Pereira. Now, I feel that Adesanya has been one of the most unlucky fighters when it comes to Pereira. I think he's been unlucky. And I know a lot of people can say, there's nothing about luck. He got beaten 3 times. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think in the kickboxing, I think if you look at the 2 fights, if you look at the first fight in kickboxing, Adesanya was winning that fight all the way through. I think Pereira started to come back a little bit towards the end, and then I think maybe that's what the judges remembered. But I would say it was quite fair and quite clear that Adesanya took that first fight and he didn't get it, which is what we call being robbed. I didn't want to say he was robbed the first fight, but I feel like he won the first fight. If you watch it in its entirety, I think Pereira came back a bit at the end and landed some eye-catching shots, and maybe that's what influenced the judges. But I think, like I said, in its entirety, I think Adesanya won that fight and he didn't get the decision. Now, because he didn't get the decision, he came back in the second fight trying to make a statement, going for the knockout, and he was pushing too hard. He was basically pushing for the knockout, and he was much more aggressive. And unfortunately, what happened, being more aggressive and pushing too hard, led to more openings. Now, the thing about Pereira is Pereira's kind of like a stalker. Not even just his fighting style, but in his nature. He's quite slow speaking. He's quite methodical in his approach to fighting and his style. Definitely a very calculated fighter. I feel like he likes to wait for openings. He's kind of a counter puncher or counter striker in his approach in general. And if he does have to lead and throw shots, he just seems to be quite a cautious person. He takes his time. If he was an athlete like a track star, I would liken him more to a long distance runner, whereas I would liken Adesanya more to a short distance runner. And this is quite important in their fighting styles. I feel like Adesanya has those fast twitch muscles, and he starts really aggressive. Aggressive kicks. He's very careful as well, very methodical in what he's doing, definitely. Even more than Pereira in some ways. But he's more of a fast twitch, kind of creative fighter. You often see him take the lead, landing some great strikes, and he often takes the lead, and then Pereira tends to come back at the end. So this is going to be important when I talk about the keys to victory, because I think this is what Adesanya may be getting a bit wrong about Pereira. But before I go off track, I was talking about why I think Adesanya's been quite unlucky in fighting Pereira. And I think, like I said before, in their first encounter in kickboxing, I feel if you watch the fight, I think Adesanya won the first fight, but he lost the decision. And then in the second fight, he tried to do more and push harder, and he left a lot of openings. Even before the knockout, he left some openings, and then he blocked I think it was a left hook, and then he didn't block the right hook. This was all to do with, pushing too hard and trying to take it out of the judge's hands, and it backfired on him. So he lost the second one convincingly by knockout. But I feel like that's the reason why he lost, because he was trying to make a statement, and so he left more openings. So he was unlucky in those 2 fights. Then in the UFC, I think he was unlucky again, because he he was winning the fight. You could see he was winning the fight. He was landing the better strikes. He looked better on the feet. He landed some good kicks. Even in the clinch, where Pereira is supposed to be a lot stronger than him, he took Pereira down. So what I'm trying to say is, early on, Adesanya always looks better. He always looks like he's slightly faster than Pereira. He's more accurate than Pereira. He's more creative. His defense, he gets out of the way of shots. But often what you'll see is he ends up on the back foot, counter punching, and Pereira slowly closing down the range, slowly kind of stalking him. And Adesanya is actually quite happy to be on the back foot sometimes because he likes to counter punch, but slowly he kind of runs out of space, and Pereira kind of cuts down your options, if you like, you know. So I see him do that with a lot of opponents. With Adesanya, that's what he kind of does. Slowly cuts down the ring, or the cage in this case, and he kind of cuts down your options. Now, in the fight with Adesanya, the first fight in the UFC, he landed some leg kicks, which Adesanya should have checked and didn't, and he ended up damaging his leg, his calf, which damaged his movement. And because of that, you saw Adesanya falling over and things like that, which never happens to Adesanya. Because he couldn't really move around, Pereira was able to close the gap really quickly and start landing those strikes. Now, was that the only reason why he was able to land it? Because he slowed down his movement. What about if he can't land those kicks? Adesanya will carry on moving, and Pereira was kind of a bit slow to react. So, you know, was that a mistake, another mistake that Adesanya made, which is why he lost? That's a question that we're going to come back to. If we go straight to the final finish, he started landing some good strikes because Adesanya couldn't really move much. But contrary to what a lot of people say, if you actually watch the ending of that sequence when he stops Adesanya, Adesanya was actually okay. He wasn't out of it. He was actually, he had his head down, and he was actually still kind of moving and dodging the punches. It's just that he couldn't kind of come up quickly and try to circle out, I think, to the right, because he couldn't really move that well. So I think he was just waiting for an opportunity to circle out. He wasn't as hurt as people think he was, and the fight got stopped. Was it premature? In my view, it was slightly premature. I think it was. I think actually Adesanya was okay. It's just that the position that he found himself in, he was kind of against the fence. He'd taken a few shots. He had his head down. It looked as if, you know, he was taking some hard shots, and he was out of it. And he was taking hard shots, but he definitely wasn't out of it. You know, he was just kind of waiting for an opportunity to circle out. He was hurt, but he wasn't really badly hurt. He was kind of more fatigued. And I just don't think that it should have been stopped yet, but it was stopped. And he lost. Now, I feel like if Adesanya kind of thinks about it in this way, he can take a lot of confidence. But if he thinks about it in the way that I've been beaten 3 times by this man, it's going to kind of ruin his confidence in a way. You know, I think if he looks at it properly, and I think this is the way Adesanya does look at it, he was winning the first fight they ever had. He didn't get the decision when he should have. You know, he knows he made a mistake in the second fight, and he knows exactly what mistake he made in the second fight, which made him get knocked out in the end. And in the UFC matchup, he was winning the fight throughout the fight. And again, this time, the early investment in the calf kicks, and I think it was a particular calf kick that caught him, limited his movement. So I know it sounds like 3 excuses, but they're kind of 3 valid reasons why he may have lost. And I think he can kind of take a bit of confidence from that and just focus on what he has to do correctly to actually get his first win against Pereira. From what I've seen of his training, he's working a lot more on stamina, although he has great stamina, but more kind of endurance stamina, because he needs to finish the fight in the same way that he starts the fight. You know, he mustn't fade towards the end. He needs to increase his stamina, and all the stuff I've seen him doing, he's increased a lot of stamina, endurance type of thing. So hopefully he'll be strong at the beginning in the same way that he is at the end. I think that's the dangerous time, is when Pereira kind of comes back at the end. So that's why he needs to work on that endurance strength. I think he needs to be stronger and work on a lot of strength and conditioning, because Pereira's coming in stronger. Even Adesanya actually said that he looks a lot stronger now. So he needs to work on a lot of strength. And that's basically how he's going to beat him, because I think naturally I think he's a better fighter than Pereira in a lot of ways. More creative, faster hands, faster strikes. Pereira has his own advantages. He has maybe a power advantage. I think he's a harder puncher. He is a bigger, slightly stronger guy, just in his presence in general. But, it's going to be tough. But I do think Adesanya needs to mainly work on his strength and conditioning and endurance. And I think he can get the win. Now, for Pereira, who is the champion now, he has some intangibles that's hard to overcome. He's naturally a big, strong guy, and he took punishment from Adesanya like no one has taken from Adesanya. So he can take Adesanya's best punches, best strikes, and that is something that is very, obviously that's very dangerous and very off-putting for Adesanya. Adesanya has to kind of do a lot to make an effect on him. But at the same time, Adesanya was able to take some very good strikes from Pereira as well and be okay. So, I wouldn't get too disappointed by this if I was Adesanya. I think he just needs to believe that he can win despite the three losses. I think he needs to just believe he can win, work on those things that I said, and I think he can get the win. So my prediction, I'm going to go against what a lot of people have probably said, because a lot of people have said Pereira's a monster and he can't beat him. I'm going to go against it, and I think Adesanya is going to get the win this time. And I'd like to see Adesanya do it. I obviously would not be surprised if he lost for a fourth time, because Pereira is really a monster. He looks like one and he fights like one. So I'm not sure really, but I never like to stay on the fence. I think Adesanya is going to get it done. His first win against him, and I think he's going to be so happy. He's got so much motivation to get this one back. Someone he's never officially beaten. So I think, given the importance of this fight, I think Adesanya is going to do it. Could be famous last words. Let's see what happens in that one. In the second fight of the night, which is Masvidol versus Gilbert, this is going to be a real exciting fight. Gilbert Burns, we all know, multi-talented, great jiu-jitsu, very quick hands. He's good on the feet as well. A lot of people always talk about, if Gilbert can bring it to the mat, to the ground, he's going to have a massive advantage, because he mustn't be standing with Masvidol. I don't really see it like that. Despite what a lot of people think Masvidol is much better on the feet, and so it's in Gilbert's advantage to take it to the ground, and which is true by and large. Gilbert is going to be better on the ground with his jiu-jitsu, but Gilbert can strike as well. He's deceptively fast. He's got a variety of angles that he punches with, and he's actually really good on the feet, and he mixes up the feet and the takedowns really good, which we've seen can give Masvidol quite a lot of trouble. The thing with Masvidol is like just a natural fighter. He's uses his body so well, even to stop takedowns, the angles that he strikes from. He doesn't telegraph any of his shots. He's very deceptive and sneaky, with his setup before he sets up his shot. So you never really know if he's going for, a head shot or a leg kick, or a knee. So he's very good at mixing up and kind of camouflaging his strikes, and that's how he gets knockouts a lot of the times as well. So he's a good fighter. He had a great performance against Nate Diaz, but he does have weaknesses. Does have a lot of weaknesses. His ground game is not great. His takedown defense is better than his actual ground game, and I think the main disadvantage for Masvidal is I just don't see him being as committed to fighting and training as Gilbert Burns is. I think Gilbert Burns puts in the hard work. He's talented, but he puts in the hard work. He turns up. He knows how tough he has to be to beat Masvidal. He puts in the hard work. I think that's his kind of nature. He wants to be a champion. Masvidal is just a natural fighter. He wants to be a champion. He doesn't strike me as someone who's really willing to put in that hard kind of relentless training 2 times a day, every day, you know, that Gilbert Burns puts in. I don't see Masvidal having that kind of dedication. I feel like, and that shows up, that kind of nature shows up in the fights where he's a bit lackadaisical about certain things. His defense, he's just kind of a bit lazy with his defense sometimes. That's how he kind of got knocked out by Kamaru Usman. And you know, I have to, although I like Masvidal, I feel like his commitment doesn't match his talent. I feel like if he was as talented, if he was as committed as someone like Kamaru Usman, I think Masvidal probably beat everybody. He honestly, I think Masvidal is probably the most naturally talented of all of the fighters in the division. But his mental capacity, you know, his work ethic, I don't think it matches his talent. Personally, I don't know why. You know, he's just a guy who doesn't. If we look at his track record, you know, like various charges with the law, criminal charges, and his kind of lifestyle. You know, he's very known for the nightclubs and the nightlife and stuff like that. And although he is trying to be a disciplined fighter, I don't think that's who he is naturally. I think he's more of a street fighter. He's more of a kind of a impulsive person. But to actually beat the top fighters in the division, I think you need that hard work ethic that you see in Gilbert Burns. And I just don't think that the version of Masvidal that we see getting in trouble with the law and all that stuff, I don't think that comes anywhere close to beating the kind of dedicated UFC fighter like Gilbert Burns. I just feel that also, you know, I think once it starts to get a bit tough in there with for Masvidal, because I think it will, Gilbert Burns will, you know, take him down, and it will be very tough. Gilbert Burns has been training for this fight more than Masvidal, I feel. So I think it will get tough. And as it gets tough in there, I think Masvidal will be trying to kind of look for that one shot, you know, that one creative knee or punch or, you know, some kind of thing like that, because he doesn't really want to put in that hard work of like takedowns and strength and conditioning. I think he might start to fade and get tired as the fight goes on, and I think Gilbert will only get stronger due to his superior and more dedicated training methods, and I think that's what's going to get Gilbert the win. I do like Masvidal. He can pull a win out of anywhere, but I just feel like hard work beats talent, basically, when talent is not working hard. So I got Gilbert Burns beating Masvidal, which will be great for Gilbert Burns because he'll get a chance to get another shot at that title against, you know, if Edwards beats Colby Covington, he'll get the next title shot. And I think that Adesanya hopefully gets it done against Pereira. Let me know what you think about some of the views that I've expressed in the video. Do you think I'm talking nonsense? Have you got a totally different pick? Let me know in the comments. Like, share if you like the video. I'm on to the next one. Thank you.